time for Cigar Talk, the fastest growing cigar show in the nation. Whether you're a new cigar enthusiast or a cigar aficionado, we have something for everyone. Bringing you the best interviews, cigar reviews, and weekly giveaways. So grab yourself a cigar.
It's time to light 'em up.
Welcome back, Cigar Talk. I'm your host, Rob Jones. We have a special episode coming out midweek. We are actually at the Micallef headquarters. I have a guest co-host with us today. It's El Presidente, Dan Thompson. How you doing today, Dan?
Good morning, Rob. It's great to have you here at our Micallef offices.
Hey, I appreciate you having me. So let's explain that a little bit. Dan has recently become the president of Micallef Cigars. Congratulations, and I just want to say you've earned it, man. You really have.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a great journey with the Micallef family. 4 years ago, when Al started Micallef Cigars, one of the things he formed was an outside board of directors. At that time, I joined Al and have had a chance to watch the company as it's grown over the last couple of years. As we got into this year, we said, "Hey, Dan, what are you doing?" And I said, "Al, I'm retired. I've been at Microsoft for 20 years. I'm taking some time off." And we looked at the cigar business, and I said, maybe I could help you out a little. 9 months ago, I started working in the cigar business, and today I'm president of the company and running it with a great team that we're incredibly proud of. The team in Esteli, the sales team. It's just an amazing group of people.
Well, and we talk about it all the time on the show is, you know, the whole organization of Micallef is a great team. So we think that you all mesh really well together. And I see different parts of the company doing basically different things, but they all unified in the same direction. And I think the consumers are the ones who really benefit from that. And I think it starts at the top with Al, and you can just see his love and passion for the cigar community. So anyway, we just want to say congratulations to you. I think you've earned it. Everybody who's an ambassador knows that you're on Facebook. And, you know, we always say that, you know, a lot of companies have cookie cutter responses. Everybody knows what they are. And that's not how Micallef interacts with the ambassadors and consumers. You guys actually take time to get to know people. You want to know about their life, their situations, and you respond to them. And so I think that's a really unique thing in this landscape with companies today. So hats off to you guys. You are doing a bang-up job.
Well, I'll tell you, we're having a ton of fun in the Micallef Ambassador Group. We have people from our manufacturing team involved. We have our sales leaders involved. They're all in there. And like you said, it's a great opportunity for us to connect and better understand what's going on around the country, where ambassadors need some help. We get to support our retail partners. It's just it's a tremendous amount of fun for us all.
That's great. Hey, before we jump into the interview with Al coming up shortly, let's talk real quick about what we're smoking right now.
Absolutely. Well, we're in a little bit of a celebration period right now. So I've got the Leanda Special Edition lit up this morning.
Very nice. And I will give the listeners one guess as to what I'm smoking. I'm pretty sure they can figure it out. I'm smoking my very favorite cigar, the Medallia 6x46. Man, this has been my go-to for the last 6 months. You know, I smoke a lot of different cigars so I can stay up on what's going on, but this is my go-to. I traveled my way up here this morning, and the first thing I did was pour me a big travel cup of coffee and light up a Medallia. So I get here, they offer me any cigar I want, and what do I pick? Another Medallia. So hats off to you guys for making great cigars. And, you know, we were talking about this on the Ambassador program last night on Facebook, and somebody was complaining about the cigar quality. And that's one thing that I tell people is Micallef cares about the quality. Y'all actually do a draw test on every cigar. I mean, that's a level of commitment to the consumer that you just don't see on all cigar companies. So, again, hats off to you guys.
Well, thank you very much, Rob. It's important to us that every stick that's built, it's tested as much as can be done at the factory so that when it gets to the retail shops and the consumers, they can count on it's going to be a great product. All of these are hand-rolled. Of course, there could be a defect, but I regularly talk to 1,300 ambassadors a week, and I don't see very many defects. So,
and I know you do that because I see you on there talking with everybody at morning, noon, and night. I don't know. When do you sleep?
Late night to early morning.
All right. Well, hey, we're fixing to have Al join us, so we'll be right back after a quick break. we have Al Micallef. I've been waiting a long time to get Al on the show, and you guys know he owns the Micallef Cigar Company, and what a bang-up job they do. You know I'm a huge fan, and I just want to say we appreciate you taking the time to join us on the show today, Al.
And I love being here, and I love being in the show, but most important, I'm very impressed with this setup. I feel like I'm on a big-time radio program.
Well, I don't know about big time radio, but we appreciate you coming and taking the time to spend some time with us and talk about the big news that you guys have. We've been telling people for the last week or so that you have a big announcement, so we appreciate you coming on the show and talking about it. So if you would, give us a kind of an overall view of the PredX.
Well, it's a program that Dan Thompson came up with, and he's been working on it for quite a while. Of course, we've gotten moved up in our schedule because the FDA has moved up the dates about it by a year, and so we had to come to market with the idea and the concept a lot sooner than we had anticipated. I'm sure that we've done a good job of thinking through a program. But it's a program that I feel very strongly about. I'm not a cigar expert, but from a strategic standpoint, I feel like I've got a little bit of knowledge about strategic thinking and how things need to move forward, and what unintended consequences that occur with a program like the Feds put together. So this program hopefully gives the boutique manufacturers an opportunity to keep current line and add to their line by either licensing or trading, if that's the right word, predicates with other manufacturers to keep the industry strong and viable and not end up with just a very few manufacturers. Also, the other part of that is that I know that manufacturers like myself and a lot of boutique manufacturers kind of keep up with the law. I'm very concerned that a lot of the store owners or the brick and mortars really don't know the consequences of having product in their store that is not covered under the FDA's rules or under the predicate programs.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And so let's back up just a little bit for anyone who may not understand what a predicate is. From my understanding, it's basically, when you break it down simple, kind of like a recipe for a cigar. It basically covers the origin of the leaf, what type of leaf it is, and then box size. Was that in there as well? Viatola? Okay. So those things cover what a predicate is, but there's a lot of that information that doesn't make the cigar. Because when you blend those predicates together, you can change the flavor profile of those cigars depending on how they're fermented, the whole process of making cigars. So when you put together a predicate library, you're still leaving a lot of innovation for these boutique cigar companies, because they can take different predicates and still build completely different cigars depending on how they process the tobacco. Is that correct?
I think it is. What you're looking for is a cigar that's been made before that matches what you're going to make or what you're making now to fall within the guidelines of the FDA, the Federal Drug Administration, FDA, okay?
I got you.
I think that's the overriding part of the law that we've got to comply with. Yes, this is a prime example of unintended consequences, because everybody that's raised anything in their life that's organic, like, vegetables or tomatoes or whatever, that they're never the same every year.
Right.
So what you're dealing with, that you could, if somebody could test this, it won't record the same, or it won't test the same if it's even from the exact same field and the exact same rainfall and the exact same amount of sunlight. It's not going to test the same. If one plant next to another plant, they're not going to be the same. If you take it from a plant, a leaf, and it's from the middle instead of the top, or the middle instead of the bottom, that also will change the profile of that product.
Right. So, basically, if you had identical twins, they're still not exactly the same. So going from one plant to the next, even in the same field, you're still going to get some variances.
That is a great example, Rob. That's absolutely right. It's not repeatable. It's not a piece of metal,
right,
that you can mill and measure and it's always the same.
It's not man-made chemistry that you can control.
No.
So, well, let me ask you this. How are other cigar manufacturers reacting to the PredX idea? I mean, I think it's an amazing idea just because I'm a big fan of open source technology as far as computer software. And that's kind of like what this seems to be for me is for the cigar industry, open source.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to benefit those who participate. And so what feedback have you gotten from other leaders in the cigar industry?
Well, I think it's a variety so far, and it's very, very new, as you know. We've gotten very positive feedback. We've got people that are certainly thinking about it. And, a lot of manufacturers, a lot of people that have had predicates are holding them, believing that there's a great value in them and not so sure they want to give them up. But Dan's addressed that beautifully. If you want to put it in a pool and people want them, they can have the opportunity to license them for a fee. Or if you want to put them into a part of the pool where you can trade with other manufacturers at virtually, no cost, then that's available to you. I think that when people really begin to think about it, the first thing you think about it as a major manufacturer as well, I'm going to get rid of all these little competitors. But I can tell you that based on my experience in the auto industry, Dan's experience in the tech industry, experience in other areas, industry stays strong when new innovative people come into it on a continuing basis. It stays more competitive. Quality, with competition, quality stays high. So it's not huge benefit long-term to an industry to drive most people out of the industry.
Yeah, I think that in that scenario, the big losers are the consumers. When you narrow it down to 3 or 4 or even 5 cigar makers, all you're doing is really a detriment to the consumers who enjoy different cigars.
Yeah.
And when you bring in several, I don't know what your target number is, if it's even going to be limited, but, when you have a group of cigar manufacturers coming together and sharing their information, then it allows innovation to really prosper. And the winner of that scenario is the consumers.
Yeah. Well, if you look at examples that we all are very aware of, we had several automobile manufacturers in this country for years that dominated the industry and dominated parts of the world. And as you know, the quality of the product was not the greatest in the world. If you had a car that had 50,000 miles on it, you might as well junk it, okay? Well, when these foreign sources came in with a better automobile, more reliable, then our automobile manufacturers had to step up. And today, it's a huge industry. It's a strong industry. But we have the benefit of the quality of the kind of competition from around the world.
True.
And that's the same thing in any industry. If there's competition, the quality will get better and costs will go up. The benefit to manufacturers are the fact that they're building good quality and people are willing to pay a little bit more money for good quality.
Well, and I think this is going to give the opportunity for the boutique sector of the cigar industry, the opportunity to grow and innovate, and that's what's going to drive the cigar industry to continue to grow as we know it has over the last 15 years.
Yeah. We have lots of challenges in the industry from regulators with respect to the health side of smoking cigars, which is not very valid, as we all know. And so we're going to need to be strong as an industry to be able to inform regulators that you may not need to pick on us. There are a lot of other targets out there that are really health issues, but cigars are not one of them. And I'm a very practical guy. When I see all the grandfathers of this industry, and they're all in their 80s and 90s, and they die by getting run over by a car, or they fall down the stairs and they're not dying from health issues connected with cigars, then that, to me, that's the answer.
Well, and I'll tell you this, Al, there's never been a death certificate that said cause of death, cigars. It's never happened. And, one of the other things that I see why the FDA has come after the tobacco industry as far as what cigarettes did in attracting young smokers. And then we have the vaping industry that went after young smokers. I was talking to Scott Pierce from the PCA last week, and we were talking about like the vape companies coming out with flavors of vape called Fruity Pebbles. Well, who is that marketing to? We know that's for kids.
Exactly.
But what's interesting to me is, why is the FDA not going after like some of these vodka manufacturers? Because they also have flavors that are strawberry, grape, different flavors like that appeal to kids. However, they're getting a free pass. And so I'm not real sure why tobacco has landed on the floor of the politics that they want to attack all tobacco, not just the ones that should be. Because if you're doing vaping products that appeal to children, then I understand that. I don't think anybody should be trying to market to kids. But the cigar industry as a whole is not marketing to kids. So that's a big difference that I see.
Today, and I don't know if I should say this, but today, a lot of our industries, and I'm an industrialist, but a lot of industries have lost moral compass or their moral compass.
I agree.
The only thing they're interested in is the bottom line, and growing that business. And we all want growth, but we need to approach our businesses in a moral way. There are lots of things that you could do that are not against the law in our manufacturing businesses, but we just won't do it because it's just not morally correct.
Well, and we talk about this on a regular basis, Al, and that's what we appreciate about Micallef brand, is that it starts at the top, which is you, and that trickles all the way down through your whole team. We've talked about it on the show many times about what a great team you have, and we believe that is because of your stance. You're taking care of the consumers and having that moral stance. So we want to say thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I feel my mission in life is to make good product, and it's cost us a lot of. We make a lot of products that are more expensive in our rubber businesses, and that we can't establish a position in the market with that product because these chain buyers are just looking for cost, price. And I won't play in that game because I want people I do not want people to think badly about our family or our company because they bought something that turned into a piece of crap. I just won't do it.
Well, and I just say to you guys who we preach to all the time about the Micallef cigar line, when we talk about a company caring about the consumers and the quality of the product that they deliver, this is the man that makes it happen. So we want to say thank you for that, Al.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
How long will it be before we actually see other cigar makers join PredX? I mean, are we talking like a month? Are we talking 6 months? Have you guys had any feedback to where that kind of information?
I would think we're talking about weeks.
Okay.
Now, it's going to take years to develop the strength and the power that we want to have in that organization. And of course, now we're funding it for the first year ourselves. And and I don't want it to be the Micallef PredX program. I want it to be the PredX program for the industry.
Well, that was another question I was going to ask you. Are other leaders in the cigar industry concerned that this is all about Micallef, or do they understand that this is a team effort between all those who have predicates and that can join this organization?
Well, Dan's made that clear in his communications, but I know that when we turn it over to the industry, in general, with the board and the trust and the 401c3 and the things that we need to do to make it viable long term, people begin to understand. The only thing I'm trying to do is to keep the industry strong. We've got our predicates. If we didn't do this, we would still be fine. But I think that there are a lot of people out there that that are in the industry that make great contributions that don't have the resources we have. Maybe I should say we have, because it's been an expensive proposition getting involved, but we have the resources to try to get this done and try to help the industry in general.
Well, and I think that opening it up to other cigar manufacturers is key, and for them to know that you're going to have a board of directors and that you're going to take input from all of the ones who join. And so what you have in place now has a certain look to it, but it can evolve, and it probably will evolve as everybody comes together. And that's where the innovation comes in, because you'll not just have your staffs, but you'll actually have other people who've been in the business maybe even longer, and also in different markets. They have farms in different regions throughout the world, and so they'll bring some new ideas maybe that you guys don't have yet.
Yeah, the quicker that we can make this a consensus program, with input from everybody that's involved on the board, the happier we'll be. Okay, I mean, we just, I do not want this to be, recognized as a Micallef effort. This is an effort for the industry, and that's the way we're going to approach it. That's the way I approach it.
So if you break it down, you guys are getting the ball rolling. Now we need to get the other players to come to the table.
That's absolutely right. And, and the quicker that can be done, the happier we are. We've got a lot to say grace over trying to build this company. All the time that we spend on making this work is time we could be spending on marketing and selling our product. But more importantly, we think for the health of the industry, somebody's got to kick this thing off.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it's a great idea. I've been super excited about it since Dan shared the idea with me. And I think that's one of the benefits you have from bringing people into the fold that's not just a cigar guy. Because I don't know that a cigar guy would have came up with this idea on his own. You bring somebody in who's been in the software business and they understand the open source.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I love about the cigar industry, but really any industry, is when you bring in other people with other outlooks or other experiences that they can help the industry as a whole.
Yeah. As you know, Rob, there are many industries that, you would never think the auto industry would do exactly what we're addressing, but they do, because if there's an airbag concept that's developed that saves lives, and you're the only company that has it, come on,
Right.
So let's share that technology. If the other guy has to pay a little royalty, that's fine. It's there for him to use and utilize and save lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's going to wrap it up. Is there anything else you want to tell us before we let you go?
I guess sincerely from my heart is I'm very, very lucky to have people like Dan Thompson in our business, and a lot of the young guys we have like Sam and Amanda Micallef. She's my daughter, but she's dynamite, and it's good for me to see that. And I've been doing this for a long time, and I get tired, and these folks got great enthusiasm, and they're moving forward. And we hope that we'll be talking to me when I'm 96 and I fall down the stairs.
Well, let me ask you this. This may be a question that's off limits, but I got to ask it anyway. How old are you, Al?
I'll be 77 in January.
Well, let me tell you, you look great. You get around great. You smoke great cigars. You're doing awesome things. And I know a lot of people that are big fans of yours.
Well, thank you. I'm looking for a great-looking 70-year-old right now. No, I'm kidding.
Hey, I got one for you.
You got one for me. Dan has one, too. It's his mom. I love his mom. At any rate.
Hey, well, I was going to say my mother-in-law.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
But no, we just want to say thank you for all that you do. We're big fans of the Micallef line, and I tell everybody every week that before you guys even sponsored our show, I was a big fan of your cigar line. And one of the things that I love about the cigar line that you have is it's a journey. And I say that because you have so many different line of cigars and so many complex profiles and so many price points that you have a cigar for everyone. You have cigars that range from $4 to $42, and the profiles of those cigars are just all over the place. So you actually have a cigar for every palate. So you guys have done a heck of a job, and I think that you put together a really good team around you, and I think that's really the most important part.
Yeah. The thing I'm most proud of is if you smoke one of our $4 cigars or our $6 cigars, you're going to be just as satisfied as if you smoke one of our expensive cigars. Because there's quality built into every single product. Our guys are great at being able to take tobacco that the average person would build a crappy cigar out of. They're really good at fermenting and handling it, so they will produce the best product they can out of a lesser material. most people in the restaurant industry or other industries forget is training. Training is so important. You can get two people of equal skills, and if you don't train one of them, you're not going to get what you want. So you really need to take the time to train people. I mean, I laugh about in our restaurants, it's a 3-week training program. 50% of the people in our program flunk out.
Wow.
It's like, you want to be a Navy SEAL or you want to be a wait staff person at Riata. I mean,
right.
You got to train.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. Good people and good training.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for taking the time to speak on PredX with us, and we look forward to having another interview, a little bit more background about you, but I know you got a busy day lined up, so we'll get back to you on that, I hope.
You bet. I'd love to do that.
All right,
I always
thanks,
enjoy being with you.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thanks, and I won't stick you with the bill next time.
Oh, no, not a problem, Rob.
You guys take care. Bye-bye. Hey guys, thanks for hanging through that break. Man, we're just honored to have Al Micallef on the show. I mean, I'm a huge fan of his, and it's not just his cigar business that I'm a fan of. I'm a fan of the entrepreneurship that he's led his whole life. I mean, he is inspirational to me. And anyway, it's just a pleasure to be able to talk to him in person. And we definitely have another interview set up with him after the first of the year. One-on-one, we're going to get his story. So make sure you tune into that. I'll give you more details after the first of the year on that. So I got Dan back. He's our guest co-host today. And they just gave me a tour of the headquarters here at Micallef. And I got to say, it's badass. They have more cigars than I've ever seen. In fact, I tried to convince Dan to let me set up a cot in the humidor, and he said no.
No, Rob, we're not going to do that.
So that would be, if I could get a TV and a cot in the humidor and some coffee and some donuts, man, I'd be set.
It's a great idea, Rob. We're just going to choose to ignore it at this time.
Okay. I'm just throwing that out there. If you ever wanted to, I could be like the nighttime security
You could be
guard.
security. Now that changed the whole story.
Right.
You got to give us a benefit.
And I would work for cigars.
It sounds great. Do you think your wife will sign off?
No, not a chance. Unless you're going to pay her, and then she'd be all for it. I want to get back to the whole predicate, because that's what this show is based around. This is big news. And so let's talk about what the predicate means for the consumer.
No, I think that's a great place to start. A lot of this was foreign to me a year ago before I really stepped into the role that I'm in today and got to spend some time to understand what an FDA predicate is and how does it impact us. I think the first thing for consumers to know, if you're going to your favorite store or you're buying online, every cigar effective May 2020 has to have a predicate behind it. If that predicate's not there, then the retailer's not able to sell it. So the potential downside of this FDA regulation is without a predicate, the manufacturer can't ship it to the retailer, and retailers will have to take off the shelf any cigars that don't have predicates. So it really could limit your choices effective May 2020 if the manufacturers haven't filed properly.
And I'll tell you something else that makes me think of is we live in a cigar culture where everybody's looking for that next big release.
That's right.
What's the next new cigar? Well, that could be over. You know what I mean? With this new FDA proposal and limiting the recipes or predicates, as you would say, it really limits the innovation that can take place.
Yeah, I think there's two sides to that. Not only can it limit future innovation, which takes away all these great cigars that we're always chasing and looking for, but it could also wipe out categories of cigars that were created between 2007 and 2019.
Wow.
That's a lot of good cigars.
That's a lot of good cigars. I mean, as many new cigars as I've seen come out over just the last 4 years, I mean, we're talking about hundreds of different cigars.
Now, there's a positive note. Every manufacturer is working hard with their legal team on how to ensure that they have grandfathers and substantial equivalents. But if you just look at the macro level, with the FDA regulation that's in place, we've had to move up our submission 2 years to May of 2020. And what the baseline scenario says, less innovation and choices may go away that you've enjoyed.
Yeah, and that's crazy that they moved it up 2 years.
Well, they were forced to. It was a lawsuit by some other parties that forced the FDA to move it up by 2 years. So you have activist organizations that, in many regards, they do great things in life. Some of them are medical organizations. They help us in other parts of our life, but for whatever reason, they've put their focus on the premium cigar industry, and the FDA lost the suit and had to move them up.
Oh, I didn't know that they lost the suit. So
That's right.
Wow. So let's talk about the details of what it means to a retailer, these predicates. I mean, because most retailers probably don't even know what the predicate is. I mean, I'm not saying across the board they don't, but there's a lot of retailers that are focused on serving the consumer, and they're not caught up on what the predicate issue is.
You know, the retailers are just like we are as manufacturers. You want to be able to serve your customer. And we're in a little different position as a manufacturer because we have some legal deadlines in front of us. But the retailers, their knowledge, it's kind of varying because it's been a complicated process. When you first undergo regulation, the rules change as you go through the process. So what I think is important for retailers to understand today, that the submissions are due in May of 2020. And here's the hard impact. If the product is not approved, then the retailers have to pull it off their shelf. So if a manufacturer doesn't comply appropriately and the product's not approved by the FDA, then the retailer has to pull it off their shelf because it'll be considered contraband. And before you ask, Rob, I know where you're going to go. It's not going to be clear what's approved. We don't even know how long it'll take the FDA to be able to say everything that was submitted on May 2020, who's approved and who's not. There's just not a clear answer.
See, you thought you knew where I was going to go. You didn't. See, let me tell you where I was going to go. So if you have retailers all across the nation that have basically contraband, they're going to have to dispose of those cigars. And I am creating myself a company to dispose of contraband. So all those cigars can be shipped to an address, and I'll take care of all the disposing.
You know what, Rob, you may have a winner there. I just want to warn you, the tax authorities who may take away their tobacco tax if they don't dispose of it may ask you where you put the contraband.
Well, I'm going to burn it.
Of course you are.
So tell me, I mean, I know we kind of have a general idea of what a predicate is, but I know you know a little bit more of the details. Explain what a predicate is.
So a predicate today is defined as either a grandfathered product or a substantial equivalent. Let's go through both of these scenarios together.
Okay.
So a grandfathered product was available commercially in 2007 or before. And to prove that, you have to have receipts, pictures, catalogs. Now, first thing that your ears may pop up and say, before 2007? Yeah, that's right. It's longer than any of our IRS tax records.
Wow.
So you can imagine every manufacturer's having to reach way back in the time machine and say, do I have catalogs from that time period? Do I have invoices still?
And you have to have pictures as well?
There's about 10 or 12 document categories that the IRS will take a combination of. So when you're building your application, you provide what you have, pictures, invoices, whatnot. And you're making an argument that this product was commercially available before 2007.
And so let's just say that I was a cigar company back in the 50s or 60s, and I don't have that documentation. I don't have a predicate. Is that correct?
In theory, you can say I have a grandfathered product. It's the question is, will the FDA ask you to show the information that supports it? So as a manufacturer, you can't rely on that.
Wow.
You have to be able to show the information. I think the second part that's important about the information that we're providing is what are the details that describe a predicate? You know, what we're filing today is what is the wrapper leaf, the binder, the filler? What's the Vitola? What shape is it exactly? Is it a torpedo? Is it a Toro? How long was it? What's the ring gauge? How many were in the box? What was the box made out of? All of this information comes together to form one grandfathered product. So if you sold the product in 2007 in a box of 20, and today you're selling it in a box of 10, that is not the grandfathered product.
So even the size of the box and the count in the box counts as the predicate.
That's correct. And as the FDA is regulating for the first time, and it's not their fault in that regard, they're having to learn what measurements make sense. They regulate medicines and medical devices where there's a lot of precision. In our industry, because it's a hand-rolled product, it's just like Al said, there's variability every year with the products. The tobacco grows better or less good, and so you have to tweak and adjust the blend so that your customers continue to always have this great product that they can count on.
Well, what really it seems to me, if you think about the cigar industry, it just kind of irks me a little bit because, and I understand that there's like a demand on the FDA's part to do this, but can you think about these farmers making cigars back in the 50s and 60s without knowing this is coming? There was no reason to keep
There was no reason to have those
documentation.
records.
You know what I mean? This is kind of like a surprise out of left field for guys that in a third world country had no idea this was coming. So I can see where this is going to catch a lot of cigar manufacturers off guard that's been in the business for decades.
Yeah, there's families that are 3, 4, 5, 6 generations deep that they can count their heritage. And they know that they've been blending and building these great cigars. And now the market in the U.S., which I think it's about 380 million sticks, is that about right?
That's what I've heard.
That's a huge market. Now there's pressure to go back and be able to show your acquisition of tobacco, the process that you used, the Viatolas that you created. It's a real undertaking. When people hear business owners talk about the cost of regulation, this is an example. We not only have to do all the discovery, but then we have to work with our legal teams to prepare and submit the predicates. And we've only talked about a grandfathered predicate so far.
Now, let's talk about this, and I don't know if you have this information, but let's say that I'm a new cigar company right now, and I don't have any predicates. What does it take to get a predicate?
Well, there's 2 pathways. You'll hear most of the cigar industry focused on the grandfather product and the substantial equivalent. There is a new product market pathway where you have to submit that this cigar is as substantially safe as other products that may have been on the market. To be honest with you, I'm really not an expert in it, but what I am aware of is that most manufacturers fear that pathway because of the significant cost and testing that's required to say, yes, this product is not outside of the boundaries. We've never had it in the market, but you have to go through a lot more testing.
Well, and I've heard rumors, and that's all they are, but the number I was hearing before was just to bring one cigar to market, having the testing done was in the neighborhood of about $250,000. That substantially adds a huge cost to a cigar being manufactured.
Yeah, I'll just tell you as a business leader today, it'd be shocking to me if you could build a business model that says, I'm going to create a new cigar company, I'm going to create my own manufacturing, and by the way, I'm going to pay $250,000 for every Viatola that I bring to market.
If you bring out 4 cigars, that's $1 million.
That's $1 million, and that business model just doesn't pencil.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. I find this is an interesting thought, too. Will the U.S. cigar market suffer under this structure versus other countries that do not have this? Are we going to see a transition of cigar companies manufacturing cigars just for other parts of the world because they don't have to mess with all this bureaucratic BS as we do here?
You've seen in the last 10 years some very astute cigar companies begin to build regional specific products. Davidoff Year of the Rat comes to my mind, which is a predominantly Asian-tuned product. It's possible that they make the decision that it's not worth bringing into the U.S. and they focus on the Asian market. In that case, that market would be getting new innovative cigars that we're not.
See, and that's exactly what I was worried about. I think that really cuts back the innovation that we've come to love here in the United States. So I got a little question for you, though, talking about the Year of the Rat. That's the Chinese calendar, like Zodiac or whatever you want to call it. But what would you be classified as?
I'm an ox.
You're an ox.
That's right. We're mighty and we're powerful.
You know what I am? I'm a cock.
I'm not going to even ask what kind.
1969 is the year of the cock.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, well, they kind of should go together too. 1969 and the year of
You
the cock.
naughty boy.
So, anyway, so tell us about how PredX is going to work and how you see that solving some of the issues for the boutique cigar industry.
Hey, before we turn to that, let's actually go down the second pathway to getting a predicate.
Okay.
So we covered the grandfather, which is kind of the clear-cut case that if it was on the market before 2007. There's another tool that the FDA has put in the toolbox called a substantial equivalent. What that says is that you had a predicate, you had a grandfather product, and now you're building a cigar that is substantially equivalent. So if perhaps you had a Robusto and a blend. Now you're building a Toro. You can begin to take the same paperwork from the grandfather, file it as a substantial equivalent, say all we've done is change the length of the cigar.
Oh, okay.
Now, it's really an important step to be able to have substantial equivalents because that does allow some innovation to occur in changing the size and the shape of the cigar. It would be hard-pressed to get a substantial equivalent on a different blend, but you certainly can make different packaging decisions, and substantial equivalent gives us the tools to do that.
Well, that's a good news part.
No, that's a good news. And there's actually a third piece of good news, and we really try to figure out how in business can we solve problems working with our regulators so that we're both compliant, but then we can get back to building cigars and focusing on customers. And this next statement, I don't know that I've seen it in the official regulations yet, but there's potential that they're going to offer substantial equivalent grouping, where if we had 3 cigars that were made off of a grandfather product, we've changed the box count in 2 and changed the size on 1, that we could file those together in one submission. Because you can imagine every submission is expensive for us to create and for our lawyers to file.
Yeah, anytime you have lawyers filing paperwork for you, it's not a cheap process. And so that, to me, is another obstacle for small boutique cigar brands.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now I forgot what question I asked you before. And
I think you were going to ask, what about PredX and how are we
Okay.
talking about the predicate
let me
exchange?
roll into that. So all that being said, tell us exactly what your vision is for PredX.
Sure. Rob, I come from a different industry. I come from the software world. And one of the things I'd like to be able to kind of lay out there is that in a certain regard, predicates are like patents. It's the intellectual property that we own as cigar manufacturers. And in the software world, like in the automotive or the aviation, there became a time when sharing of those patents or predicates allowed the whole industry to move forward. Now, we'd all invested by ourselves and got the predicates and filed them, but what we want to do is be able to continue to innovate. And in the predicate exchange, we want to solve a couple key problems. First problem is there an organization that's built and brought together for the manufacturers to be able to enhance our ability to comply to the FDA and at the same time enhance our ability to be innovative and build great cigars in the future for customers. And PredX solution, we think that we can do both of those in the same process.
So who would actually benefit from being a member of PredX?
So I think there's going to be 2 or 3 different types of manufacturer strategies. Depending on how big or how small you are, you may have different approaches, and that's absolutely fine. I mean, we live in a marketplace where we all compete. I think that the largest cigar companies, from early conversations, they believe that they have all the predicates that they'll ever need, and perhaps they're not interested. Now, I'll put a footnote on that because that's certainly the way we felt in the software world when I was at one of the largest companies in the world, and we thought, oh, we don't need to play in open source. That's not what we do. So I think that the immediate answer of the largest cigar companies in the world will be, thank you, that's interesting, we'll pass. I personally believe, as we're committed to the long term, that over the next 5 years, that their views may change as they realize unintended consequences that happen by not collaborating with other manufacturers. So that's one group.
Okay.
Second group is a group of people perhaps like Micallef Cigars. You're a boutique company. You have all the predicates that you're going to need to meet the FDA filing. And we're blessed and fortunate that inside of those predicates that we have in our family, we can continue building great new cigars through the substantial equivalent pathway. So we feel good about where we are as individuals. However, we don't think it's going to solve the long-term problem where we want to innovate. What if we want to do something a bit different? Well, in a world without the predicate exchange or PredX, we have to go out and we have to discover who has predicates. And if you've ever looked at the FDA site, have you looked at it, Rob?
I have not.
If you go to the FDA site, you can download a spreadsheet that has all the predicates. But guess what's not in it?
What's not in it?
The blends.
Oh,
So they give you only the predicate number and the owner of the company and the cigar brand that was named, but you would have to build a database for yourself that says, Davidoff had cigar X and it's got a grandfather approval, but you would have to go fill in the blend information, the Viatola size, to say, hey, is that interesting? Would I want to talk to them to license a predicate?
so basically what you're saying here to me is that PredX is going to build that database for the members that are in PredX and create the blending data as far as what you would need to say, you know what, I would love to use this blend to make a cigar.
You're exactly right. We solve a couple problems inside of PredX. The first is, as a member, you can bring the predicates that you own that you want to bring. When I say bring, that means you license them to PredX. And then the members of PredX have I personally believe what will be a royalty-free license to take any of those predicates and build their own cigar off of it. Now, that solves the discovery problem, which is what I was just alluding to. It's very difficult if there's nowhere where the predicates are put together in one place and curated so that we actually know they're all accurate in a transparent way for the members to be able to discover them. That's going to be alone a significant cost savings for manufacturers.
And you're going to have the predicate ID and information so that everybody knows that the blend that they want to take from the PredX is legit and it is approved by the FDA. So you're taking away a lot of risk there. So you're actually making it easy for other companies to blend their cigars because you're providing all the legal material.
We're providing the legal basis. And I think that sometimes we need precision in words. What we'll be providing is the predicate information. Now, each manufacturer is an expert at how they ferment and how they actually construct the cigars. So if you have a single predicate, at Micallef, for example, if somebody else picked up that predicate and used it and did a blend, it would have to be true to the predicate. But through their fermenting and their construction techniques, it's going to taste as a different cigar to the end consumer.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, man, I'm excited about it because, I am used to being able to smoke different cigars, different complex profiles, and I see innovation going away without creating an organization like this.
No, you're exactly right. It's a natural, if you look at the history of business in different industries, when regulation occurs, often the biggest players benefit the most. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's the facts and reality. In our case, that means that the boutique firms that we love who are generating all these new ideas and cool cigars, it's very difficult for them to be able to innovate and build products for their users.
Well, and I think looking at the cigar landscape as we know it now, now I realize why so many small boutique companies have come out with limited run cigars, because they don't have predicates for these cigars. So they know if they only make 200 or 400 or 500 boxes, they can sell them before this FDA regulation goes into effect, which in my opinion is also a sad thing because I've smoked a lot of great cigars that just came out, and those cigars are literally going to be off the market.
Yeah, that's one of the consequences of regulation if they don't have predicates for them. That's why we think that PredX is so important, because they may be able to take that boutique cigar that was a limited run and look through the entire database of all the predicates and say, hey, company X actually had a predicate that's very similar to what we're doing. Let's sit down with our legal team and see if we can make this a cigar that can be available on the market after May 2020.
Let's just play the role scenario that I'm a cigar manufacturer. Why do I want to come to PredX if I have 10 predicates and I'm good making my cigars? Why would I want to join PredX?
Well, the simple answer is you may want to bring a new facing to the market that doesn't fall in one of your predicates. And so you don't want to go through the discovery process, making sure that all the legal documents are correctly filed. You'd prefer to go to one place. Now, I personally believe that that will happen, and that's okay. But when you're in that conversation, let's say you find a predicate at one of the major manufacturers. Now you're going to have to negotiate with them. Say, I'd like to license your predicate. By the way, I don't have any alternatives. Will you help me? That's the worst negotiating position in the world.
Right. So talking about that, it really sounds like you're creating a predicate library.
It's absolutely a predicate library that's curated. It solves the discovery problem. Once we get the PredX set up, it's going to be owned by the members. This is not a Micallef predicate library. This is a PredX predicate library.
How does that work as far as the licensing of the predicates for companies? How does that work?
So there's a couple ways that people are going to license predicates. There's some companies that are huge and they have a predicate library that's amazing. There's some other boutique companies that have been out acquiring predicates and they think they have everything that they need. And then there's another category of companies like Micallef and many others who they have their predicates, but they'd like to be able to innovate. For those companies, there's two conversations that are going to happen. Conversation one is you realize another company has the predicate that you need to build this new blend that you've been experimenting with to be able to bring it to market legally in the U.S. So you call them up, you say, hey, may I license your predicate? The other company looks at you and says, do you have any other choices? You say, no, you're the only predicate I can find. That's going to become a very expensive conversation.
Yeah, you're on the losing end of that stick.
Yeah, it's difficult. The discovery was expensive, and then the terms that you're actually going to get could be very expensive. The alternative, and what we're doing in PredX, is we want to build a library of the predicates where they're easy for the members to look at and go through discovery in a very simple way. That saves money by itself. And the second thing is the members of PredX will have established a single licensing system that they're able to do for other members. I personally believe it'll be royalty free because as we get into the details and people understand being able to pick this predicate or that predicate and it just being royalty free will be far more valuable than the cost of hammering out individual terms.
I think what you guys are doing to bring in basically anyone who wants to join that has predicates is the solution to innovation for the cigar industry. Because without that, I mean, thinking about this, if I'm a cigar manufacturer and I know I'm growing these particular tobacco plants and I want to build a cigar, I can come to your library and say this predicate here is exactly what I'm wanting to do, so they can exchange that predicate and use it perhaps royalty free.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I also want to light up a third scenario that we haven't talked about. Let's say, Rob, that you win that lottery that you play every week and you decide you're going to launch Rob's Real Good Cigars.
I'd have a better name than that, but go ahead.
Okay. If you get Brian involved, I'm sure it'll be better.
Oh, wow. Oh, that kind of hurt.
So you have your Real Good Cigar Company, and you have a blend in mind because it was something that you'd smoked before, and you go out and you say, I'd really like to be able to build a cigar that's like something else. Maybe you have two or three. If you go to a manufacturer who's a member of the Predicate Exchange, all they have to do is go into the database and pull up those predicates that they already have licenses on so they can manufacture for you. Now that solves two problems for a cigar manufacturer. We love to be able to do additional construction in our factories because it increases our capacity, which makes us more profitable. The thing it does for end consumers is now a new cigar brand is going to the market and it provides them more choices and innovation.
And because they're going through a experienced factory, you know you're getting quality construction, quality products because you're relying on the experience that they've put in for how many decades?
Yeah, they're great at building cigars. And it allows you to focus on building your brand, selling your cigar, and the things that are required to go to market. But you also know on the back end that all the legal T's and C's are properly done so that you're not at risk for your product becoming contraband in the future.
So let me ask you this. If someone is interested in joining PredX, you have a website available, and that you have it all laid out on PredX website. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you go to predx.org, you're gonna see a series of articles that are out there. And articles are being added all the time. The fundamental pieces for the principles behind why PredX and then how we're actually going to move it into existence are laid out. The one thing I can't answer for you, Rob, is once we're together as a bunch of member manufacturers, what the final terms will be, because that's something that'll be determined by the members at that time.
Well, and I think that's the way it needs to be played, because you don't, like you said earlier, this is not a Micallef company. This is going to be members coming together to make those policies and processes and put those in place.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, there's one example on what should the licensing terms be between members. And we're putting together the framework ahead of time. This is Micallef investing our dollars to put into PredX, so that when we sit down and begin to have a board of director conversation, we're going to say, what does it mean if it's open source? What does it mean if it's royalty free? What does it mean if it's royalty at rate of X? What are the exact details that make these licenses work? Now, a lot of manufacturers may not come from a strong licensing background like I do. So we want them to be able to understand what is the array of options that are out there, and then as a single organization decide together on what's best for us.
Well, and I'll tell you what I like about it. From my perspective, it sounds like because you've laid this out in advance, you're saving those other cigar manufacturers a ton of money just on lawyer fees.
Well, I describe it as we want it to be friction free, you know,
Okay.
and friction comes in the form of lost time and lawyer fees. We really want everybody to get back to being able to be innovative and serving our customers and retail partners, who are the most important people to us.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so when I talked to Al earlier, he said that we're talking about a matter of weeks of hoping to get people involved and start getting the membership started. Is that what you're looking at?
Well, I love Al's sense of urgency. I think it'll take a little longer than that. And I think that the key thing for us is to have the conversations with the other manufacturers who are like-minded. I'm not going out trying to convince somebody who has a different business strategy.
Sure.
I really want to solve it with people who are like-minded first. And, you know, we chose what appears to be the holiday times for two reasons. One, the FDA moved up by 2 years the date. We were originally going to launch PredX in the first half of next year. If we had unlimited time, we would have already had manufacturers signed up with us. But we've decided to hustle and push it out today so that we can have the conversations over the holidays and in January with other companies.
Well, and I think that time is of the essence. You're looking at this new law going into effect in May of 2020. So, I mean, if I was a cigar manufacturer, I'd be wanting to hit you up as soon as possible and get all the details that I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think there's a mind shift that manufacturers are going to go through, to be honest with you. At Micallef, we're very lucky that so many other manufacturers were in this industry before us and built a vibrant industry. But the three tools that these manufacturers and the organizations have been using are lobbying, legislating, and litigating. And you have recently had a guest on from PCA where they were talking about these tools. And thank God they're actually out there using them, or we may have lost the whole industry.
Right.
But I feel like if you don't look across all your tools as a business leader, you may be missing something. That's where I think that licensing and being able to create a system that's very friction-free. You know, as a member, you join, boom, you have a catalog, and you have a set of licenses that are already done. Being able to use licensing takes you from being a victim to FDA regulation into being a player that's focused on your customers and retail partners.
Yeah, and I mean, depending on the size of the membership, you could go from having 3 or 4 predicates to having access to 50 predicates in no time.
50 or 500. I mean, I really don't think there's a limit on what we'll be able to bring. And I'm sure there'll be debates that'll be interesting. But if you're at Micallef, we'll have a certain number of predicates. We don't even know the final number because we're in the process of filing and finalizing. But to be able to double, triple, 100 times what we had at our fingertips, that's a huge win for us as manufacturers. And we don't want to compete with other companies on are they good at registering and lawyers. We want to compete on are we building great sticks and do customers love them.
Absolutely, and that's where the consumer wins.
That's absolutely right. And it allows this wave of innovation to continue because, I used to buy cigars and hold them for years. I don't do that anymore. There are so many good cigars when I go down to my brick and mortar. It's amazing. We don't want to take a step backwards.
Oh, I agree 100%. And I mean, that's one of the things that concern me with this new predicate registration with the FDA in the first place is there's so many good sticks that I've smoked just over the last 5 years that I don't think would be in existence without this type of support system.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing. It's hard being an individual boutique cigar company. But if we're side by side, shoulder to shoulder with other boutique companies, and boutique can scale up. That doesn't mean that you're small. It just means that you've got something that customers love and you're driving it. Contrasting that to perhaps publicly owned companies. When you're a publicly owned company, you have a different strategy. That's okay. We want to focus with people who have the same struggles that we have, and we want to be able to bring an answer to them so that we can focus on our customers.
Well, I think it also levels the playing field with if you're a member of PredX and you have access to, let's just say, 300 predicates, where before, if you were only going to have 3 or 4, now you're actually on a level playing field with the guys that are top dog in the industry.
That's right. And, we don't want to take anything away from the largest companies. They're great. But if you ask many consumers, they really enjoy the vibrancy of the boutique brands because we're out innovating and trying different things. I'll tell you, you take a predicate down, a new predicate to your master blender, and you let them start working on it. It's amazing what they can do. They can build this great cigar, but still be completely FDA compliant. And that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's where you want to be.
Yeah, we have to be compliant.
So what other details of PredX do you want to put out there so that other cigar manufacturers or even retailers would need to know?
Well, I think that you'll see from PredX, the Predicate Exchange, a real focus on conversations with manufacturers right now. We will get to the retailers. We want to educate you on the way, but what we're not is a news site for FDA news.
Okay.
The Half Wheel, Coop, other people, they have such great sites that cover FDA news. But what we're going to cover, very focused, is what does a licensing-based business solution for manufacturers look like? Who benefits from them? Eventually, the retailers will have access to our list, so they'll be able to look up and say, hey, this group, they're part of PredX, they're a manufacturer. Cool, I know that they're covered on all their predicates. That'll happen over the medium term to long term. Right now, it's about us having conversations with the manufacturers and working up a letter of intent that they want to participate so that we can actually form our board and begin with the serious business of nailing the licensing terms.
Well, I'm going to just tell you, for one, I hope that you have a ton of people jump on board very soon, because the sooner that people join up with PredX, I see the continued innovation. And I think that's what all the consumers really want.
Well, Rob, I appreciate that. And, if there's a manufacturer that you talk to, I would frame it this way. There's a whole lot of upside if PredX works. There's no downside if you choose not to participate. Still your business, it's still your path, you can continue on. However, those who opt in and are like-minded are going to get the benefits that we can bring through a solution.
Absolutely. And I mean, I would encourage any cigar manufacturer to get with you guys and talk about it so that you can educate them and they can find out what it's all about and then make an educated decision for their own company.
Yeah, you want it to align with their business strategy and the approach that they're taking. And I'm really comfortable with there'll be manufacturers that are early adopters. And then over time, there'll be other manufacturers that go, hey, the way I'm approaching this by myself is crazy. Can I join PredX then? And the answer is going to be yes, we'd love to have you. However, at that time, the board of directors will already be set.
Right.
We'll be under a set of rules that we think best benefit the initial members.
Well, that makes sense. Well, hey, is there anything else on PredX that you want to discuss before we kind of shift gears here? Because I got a couple of questions I want to ask you as well.
No, I just appreciate the time to be able to walk through some of the details. If they go to predx.org, they'll be able to find a couple 1-minute position papers that walk them through licensing and the backgrounds and our sense of urgency so that they can see the roadmap that we've established to bring them into PredX and make a much more friction-free form of compliance.
Okay, excellent. And I'll also on this episode on our website put a link to PredX. So if you're listening to this episode, you can just go right down below, click the link, and go over and read everything for yourself.
Yeah, and one nice thing, we have people who can join the discussion. And if you fill out that form, you just write down what you are, you're manufacturer, consumer, media, whatnot, because we want to keep everybody educated. I also know it's already happened that there's a significant manufacturer that was put in contact with me because a consumer subscribed to our newsletter, saw what we were doing, and began to broker that conversation for us.
Very nice. Well, I think that's what it's all about, is the community. And I think that once the community is educated on what PredX is, I think it's going to take off.
Well, thank you very much. We think it's going to be a great solution for the industry. And we certainly know every other industry, as it's matured, has developed organizations like PredX where they share their intellectual property for the benefit of all the consumers.
Well, and that's what we're looking forward to, because we don't want to see the innovation go away for sure. So shifting gears here, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your background. I know you're with Microsoft for 20 years, but as far as cigars, when did you start smoking cigars?
This is not an FDA-friendly statement, but at the time there was no regulations. I began probably when I was 14 or 15 hunting out in West Texas.
Oh, nice. And what were you hunting? Pheasant?
We were hunting if it flies, it dies.
There you go. I was going to say, well, back when you were a teenager, I guess probably there was a good source of quail, ducks, especially in West Texas. And then the hooping crane was huge out in West Texas. Is that right?
Yeah, we started off with dove and worked our way through ducks.
Nice.
So it was a lot of fun. And I can tell you, it was a Hoyo de Nicaragua.
Wow.
It was one of my original cigars, and I still enjoy the product. It brings back a lot of wonderful memories.
And that's what we've said over and over. It's not always the cigar, but it's the memory of when you were smoking the cigar. I'm impressed that you remember which cigar it was, to be honest with you, because I have no idea what the first cigar I smoked was.
I've lost a lot of things in life, but I still have my first cigar box.
Do you really?
I do.
Wow. What is it, built in like 1942?
Well, it's a well-constructed wooden box, and it's where things like wedding rings and watches go.
Nice. Well, I was going to say, I really can't bust your balls on how old you are, because I'm older than you.
Well, you're just a little older.
That's what she said. No, I'm just kidding you. So how did you make the transition from going from Microsoft, a software company, to jumping into the cigar industry? Was that a big learning curve?
Well, I'll have to tell you, I kind of had a maturing process in my smoking.
Okay.
As I went from hunting in college and enjoying Hoyo de Nicaraguas, some other cigars. You remember the St. Louis Ray in the early 90s?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was a fantastic cigar. As I became a professional and grew up and had a little extra cash, there was one predominant line that I became very well acquainted with, and I got to travel the world and carry them with me and smoke with customers and colleagues around the world, and that was Davidoff.
Great brand.
And it was funny. I think like a lot of people, I got into cigars and then got into big, bold, strong cigars. And then when I learned that the palate can taste a lot of different things, Davidoff had a lot of great offerings. And so I was a 20-year, very high consumer of Davidoff product. And I always told Al, I said, I'd love to smoke Micallef, but it's got to be as good as what I'm smoking.
Well, of course, because it's just like me and my coffee. Once you start at the top, you can't go backwards. So going from Davidoff to Micallef, I mean, there's no drop off.
It was a journey. And, Al started the company 4 years ago, and the first cigar they brought out was the Reserva. And that cigar had a note in it, the Peruvian tobacco, that I said, wow, this is something complementary to the quality of cigars I'm smoking. Same quality, but a new flavor. And at that time, I became part of Micallef's outside board of directors from day one. And as the cigars were brought to market, I discovered the La Crema Experiencia, and then the Medallia was the one that stole my heart.
Oh, well, we all know that the Medallia is just resonated with me. It's probably my favorite cigar for 2019, and it's probably not even close.
Now, I got to tell you, some retail buddies are a little pissed off at me because I changed my buying habits.
Uh-oh.
And as I was an outside director, I was still smoking Davidoff and Avo primarily. But then my market share, or the share of my wallet, moved towards Micallef's. And eventually it flipped.
Wow.
And that happened to coincide with the time when I had retired from Microsoft.
So you still weren't working for Micallef at that time?
I wasn't working at all. I'd come and do board meetings a couple times a year. And I chose at the end of 20 years of being at Microsoft, lots of fun, lots of travel, that it was time for a second half of life. And coincided, I'd also picked up a new brand that I was primarily smoking.
Very nice. Well, I tell you, for me, I learned about Micallef probably at the beginning of this year. And it was just what I love about a good cigar is, and at that time it was really about construction. I was so diehard on construction that I really was missing the boat on some of the complex profiles. But as I went through the entire Micallef line, it was like a journey with cigars, because you guys have so many different blends and so many different profiles. And so that's really what helped me fall in love with Micallef, was that you guys have so many different blends, and it actually helped me develop my palate, that I just don't smoke the big bold cigars all the time. You know what I mean?
No, and Rob, listening to you, I can tell that as you've smoked through our portfolio of cigars, that I also hear you talking about other cigars that are manufactured by people that you would never have talked about in the past.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's a lot of good cigars out there. And, used to, I would just look on a review and be like, okay, this is 100% bold, full blown cigar. And I was like, that's a cigar I'm going to love. And what I didn't realize at the time was, because it was so blown full of flavor and spice and leather, that was the only profile I was enjoying. And then once I went through the Micallef line, I was like, wow, I can actually pick up these different notes. And so that kind of shifted my direction as far as a cigar smoker.
That's exactly what happened to me. Before I was involved with Micallef, I picked up the Davidoff Grand Cru, which is a lighter cigar, but it's got a really unique taste. And as I began discovering the Nicaragua, Davidoff, and some of the other products, it really opened up my palate. And today, one of the things I'm most proud about at Micallef is not only do we have cigars priced from $4 to $42, but we have Connecticut's, we have Maduros, we even have a Ligero. So we have something that nearly everybody will enjoy.
Yeah, and I'll tell everybody right now, at the beginning of the show, I was smoking a Medallia, but now I'm smoking a Connecticut. And a year ago, you would have never caught me smoking a Connecticut. You guys knocked it out of the park with this one.
Well, when I first tasted the Robusto, I was like, there's some great things in that cigar. And when we reformatted it into the Toro, which is my personal favorite, it's a cigar that not only do I start the day, but I come back to it later in the day, and it kind of helps reset my palate.
It really
so that
does.
I can enjoy other things.
Yeah, it really does. And that's one of the reasons I've had 2 Medallias today already, and now I'm smoking the Connecticut. And then one of the reasons is because it is a great cigar to reset your palate for your next cigar as well.
I guess kind of the last stage of the original question you asked, last 9 months, I became active in Micallef on a daily basis. We've got an incredible team in Esteli that build these cigars for us with the Gomez Sanchez family. I certainly want to provide them all the accolades that they do in terms of blending and quality control. And then we've got an incredible sales team here in the U.S. that's going out and meeting with ambassadors, meeting with retail partners, and having a lot of fun. And it's just been an incredible journey as we watch this ambassador program, what Sam has done with it, be able to grow up and be one of the most impactful ways that we get feedback and conversations and really understand what our customers are looking for.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the ambassadors. How many ambassadors does Micallef have?
So we have 3,000 ambassadors on our email list.
Wow.
And that number continues to grow at a pretty significant pace every month. The thing that's interesting is out of that list of 3,000, about 1,300 or 1,400 convert into the Facebook private group that we set up. And I understand it's not for everybody, but the people who are in the private group, I've been looking at online communities for 20 years in different industries. We have over 92% of those people active every week in the online community.
And I mean, as a consumer, I want to just say it's a privilege to be able to have conversations with a manufacturer that actually cares about its consumers, because I know other brands, and I'm not specifically talking about Cigar, but just brands across the board, you don't get that kind of interaction with companies. So hats off for you guys taking the time to get to know your consumers and your ambassadors and actually processing their feedback.
If there was one thing that I would recommend to the ambassadors who are in the community, post questions. Tell us what's on your mind. We've got a great set of ambassadors that are most likely to post, and we learn a ton from them with the comments that other people bring in. But we're interested in all of you. We use this data and we review it in our business meetings, and we use it to make decisions. When we see a cigar being highly celebrated, we think, what do we need to do based on that with our sales team to make sure that all of our retailers have it available? So we take these decisions. When we were thinking about our products for 2020, we thought, what do the ambassadors want to do? And they've been telling us all year in different ways, I'd like to see this size, or I'd like to see a new blend that's like X. And it really helps us formulate what products we're going to bring to market.
Yeah, so basically they can tell you what they want and you guys are going to act on it. And so, I mean, that's the part of being an ambassador that I think a lot of companies miss. Is I know other cigar companies have ambassadors and they're basically just peddling that brand. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you guys are taking it way further and actually engaging with these ambassadors and finding out what their core values are, what their family life is like, and they give you feedback on what they want as far as cigars. And I couldn't agree more that I don't see enough ambassadors on any platform that actually ask questions and give you information about what they like as much as I think they should, because you're opening yourself up to conversate with these people. And so don't hesitate to ask any question, because you guys will value it and actually respond and engage with them.
Yeah, we absolutely need to know. If we've had a failure, we want to know about it. And it could be an event, it could be a smoke, it could be it just didn't match your taste profile, because we're a learning organization. There's nothing that we learn, good or bad, that doesn't go into making us a better company.
Absolutely. And I think that's the real value of ambassadors anyway.
Yeah, there's a little value that we also love. That is, our ambassadors have helped us understand what stores to put product in. And that's an amazingly valuable conversation for us to understand where they want to buy. Or if there's something that's out on a shelf, so that we can follow up with the retailer and say, hey, we've heard from Ambassador A and B that you don't have this facing. Could we get it restocked for you?
Very
so
good.
We hear so much great information from product feedback. And the last thing that I would say that to me is kind of the most inspiring part of the ambassador community is the support that I've seen. I know a couple people lost their fathers this year who are ambassadors. The single highest viewed thread in the ambassador forum is people consoling somebody. I just don't know that happens everywhere.
No, and we've said it many times that the ambassador program's not just about Micallef, it's about the family, it's about the community. And I mean, I think that's something that makes this particular ambassadorship very unique.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And it's really a credit to the people who get in and participate. They've shaped it, and every now and then there have been a kind of a boneheaded or off-color comments. And I love it because I don't have to say anything. I watch the ambassadors shape and determine what they want their community to be like. And I'm incredibly proud of the behavior I've seen.
Yeah, that's great. So, hey, let's take a quick break. I'm going to come back and interview Amanda, and then I will get back together a little bit after that.
That sounds great. Thank you, Rob.
All right. Thank you, sir. Hey guys, thanks for hanging through the break. We have special guest with us, Amanda Micallef. How are you doing today, Amanda?
I'm great, Rob. Good to be here.
Oh, well, we're so glad to have you on the show. I've actually been talking to Amanda probably for about 2 or 3 months. And so there's a big transition. You're now here with the Micallef family of the cigar industry. So how's that like going from one industry to another?
It's been really a lot of fun. I was in Los Angeles for the last 20 years after growing up in Texas. And so now I'm back and I'm loving getting to know Fort Worth again. And I'm really enjoying spending time working with family and our great team here and learning more about cigars.
Nice. So let's go back a little bit. First of all, when did you smoke your first cigar?
Just a few weeks ago
Very
on our
nice.
Facebook, on our ambassador group Facebook Live. So I'm very new to smoking cigars.
And what was your cigar?
La Crema.
The La Crema. Great smoke. So for your first cigar, you had the La Crema.
I did. Sam, who a lot of the Micallef ambassadors will know, picked it out for me, but it was a really nice smoke.
Nice. Well, I got to tell you, when you start at the top of the food chain, it's hard to ever go down. You started with a primo cigar, so going backwards is very difficult. But anyway, let's get back to how did you get out to Los Angeles?
I followed the film business out there. When I was a senior in high school, I had the opportunity to work on a movie just as an intern, and I completely got bit by the bug.
Oh, really?
It was a lot of fun. I mean, what 18-year-old doesn't like hanging out at a movie set? So I had the opportunity to keep working, and I did. And after about 2 years of working in Texas, I decided that I wanted to go to California. I looked around, and every time they shot a movie in Texas, all the department heads would come from either Los Angeles or New York. I was like, well, wait a second. I don't want to be down here forever. I'd like to eventually be a department head. So off to California I went.
Oh, nice. So what part of California did you go to?
I lived in Los Angeles.
Wow, you went right in.
Oh, yeah.
That's like hardcore California.
I dove in. It's changed a lot over 20 years. And I originally lived in Brentwood, so I kind of went like pretty easy, west side, suburbia, soccer mom, California, and then eventually moved downtown, which is definitely hardcore Los Angeles.
So I got to ask you this. What year did you move out there?
97.
Okay, so you were too late to be part of the whole O.J. Simpson.
I missed it. I missed the big earthquake, and I missed the OJ trial. There was still some earthquake stuff when I got there, the things that hadn't fully been built and reopened, but that was all.
So I mean, we're from Texas, so I don't really experience this. So did you have a lot of earthquakes while you were out there?
The first earthquake I ever felt was when I was back visiting our ranch in Texas
No
after
way.
moving to California. Yes.
Wow.
I was sitting in the ranch house, and all of a sudden I felt this boom, and it somebody drove a semi into the house. I may have suggested that my sister was the one who did it. And then later I found out that it was actually an earthquake. And the house was pretty good, but we have a restaurant out there and it had some cracks and damage. But that was my first earthquake experience. But
wow.
After that, I did feel some tremors in California.
I have a good friend that lives in San Diego area, and he tells me it's just like part of everyday life. You don't really notice it.
You get pretty used to it unless it's a big one.
Wow. So while you were in the film industry, like how long were you actually in the movie business?
Well, almost 20 years.
Wow.
I went out there when I was in 97, and I stayed in the film business until probably around 2012, 2013. And then I transitioned, really staying in media, but just into more social media content creation. Okay.
Well, I knew that you were in social media before you came out here. So, I mean, that was really a fast moving pace target to being a company on social media, and you were very successful. What do you attribute to your high level of success in social media? Because, I mean, it was a new landscape for so many people.
It was. I was very, very lucky in that I started getting into it right as it was starting to rise. So it was a nice time. I was sort of on this train that was taking off, and almost anybody that started then, if you stuck with it, found a lot of success. And then we listened to a lot of young people. Just the nature of a lot of what we were doing in those early days was interesting to a lot of young college students, and they came with their ideas, and those were really the primary social media users. And once we started listening to what they had to say and how they were using these platforms that were a little different in some cases than people thought they would be, we really started to find, a lot of success.
Well, and I think it's interesting that you say that, because that kind of mirrors the same business model as Micallef Cigars with the ambassadors. You're actually taking note and listening to what your consumers have to say, and especially your ambassadors. And I mean, I think that's what makes companies successful, is when they actually listen to the consumers that use their products.
I think it's imperative. And now, because of social media and digital marketing, consumers expect it. So not only do you have this incredible advantage when you listen to your consumers, they're telling you exactly what they want to buy. People who don't oftentimes find themselves on, a not very nice end of a, digital conversation among consumers. They're really expecting that, brands that they interact with will at least take the time to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because just yesterday I saw a kind of a rant on the Facebook page, and it was about a really bad cigar. And the guy didn't want to say the name of the cigar company at first. And I was like, well, you should tell us, because that's part of social media, is that we talk about the downfalls of certain companies and find out, because those companies would like that feedback as well, or at least most of them should want that feedback. So I actually started a private group called the Bad Cigar Reviews. So if you guys want to hit me up and join that group, DM me or whatever, and I'll send you a link to join that page. So how did the transition go from you going from social media in California to you coming back home to Texas to be part of the Micallef team?
I had been in California about 20 years, and I just sort of started looking around and thinking, is this where I want to be for the next 20 years? I'm at a point now where I kind of thought I should think about what I want next, and wherever that is or whatever that is, I should sort of plant myself there. And I thought, I miss Texas. I miss my family. There's a lot of interesting things happening here with family businesses, both Micallef Cigars and some of our other businesses. And Fort Worth has started to evolve a lot. And I thought maybe it would be a good place again for me. It was an amazing place to grow up. And I think it would be a great place to have stayed if I was more interested in a traditional, getting married, having kids, etc. I wasn't. I'm still not. But Fort Worth has changed enough now that you can have that life if you want it, but you can also be a single person here and still have a lot to offer.
Yeah, I mean, what an evolution the city of Fort Worth has had over the last 20 years.
It's incredible, and it's grown so fast, and there's so much that you can do now, regardless of what it is that you want. There's really sort of no reason to hold back. And then now, because of social media, because of internet shopping, and it's easier than ever to get on a plane, you don't feel like you're stuck in any one place. But I've really, really been impressed with how Fort Worth has evolved.
Yeah, and if you left 20 years ago, I mean, you left when the term Cowtown was actually pretty descriptive of the town.
Very much.
And now Cowtown is just kind of like a historical name, and because the town has really evolved into a metroplex city.
It is. I mean, I can't believe from an art and culture and music standpoint some of the things that are happening here.
So welcome back to Texas.
Thanks. It's great. It's really great to be home.
So what type of role are you playing here at Micallef Cigars?
I've been working with the team largely on marketing, really, sort of taking a step back and thinking about, what's the Micallef story? How do we want to present Micallef going forward? What are the new things that we would like to come out with? And how do we want to continue to engage with our community and our partners? Brick and mortar are still very, very important in the cigar world, and that's changed in a lot of other industries. And so from a marketing standpoint, you really have to think about how do you reach people in a way that they want to interact with the brand today? How do you not alienate brick and mortar and make sure that that experience continues into an in-person, in-store experience?
Well, and something else that I really like the way you guys handle is when you become one of the facings in a retail shop, it's not just that your product is available. You guys are actually involved with that retailer, and they're more like a partner than they are just someone selling your products.
We think of them as an extension of the Micallef Cigar team. In many cases, they're the first person and sometimes the only person in that a consumer might meet face to face. We have a great sales team that tries to get to as many retailers and do events as much as they can, but the salespeople and the store owners, play a really important role in helping get the Micallef message out there.
Yeah, because that's your first contact. And when someone's asking about different cigar facings and they come across Micallef, it's that person who's going to educate the consumer. So, I mean, I think it's essential to have a partnership with the retailers.
We completely agree.
Awesome. So where do you see Micallef going forward as far as your marketing strategy goes? If that's not too confidential.
I hope not. I don't think so. I think that we want to continue to create really great handcrafted heritage cigars. You're going to see that our flavors stay sort of traditional, a lot of Cuban flavors.
Which I love.
We have the advantage of being, though, since we're not a Cuban cigar company, we have the advantage of being able to pull our tobacco from anywhere in the world. So we can get the best tobacco, but say traditional to those blends and those flavors. I think there's a lot of opportunity to grow within some community groups like women and millennials. And I would like to see us sort of start to tap into those markets more. I think it's an exciting time for both of those groups as they sort of come on to cigars and look to try new experiences. And I'd like to sort of see us grow our in-person experiences out more. Ultimately, if you look forward 5 to 10 years, I'd like people to think of Micallef Cigars as a lifestyle brand as much as a cigar company.
I like that. And speaking of lifestyles, whenever I was actually talking to you, I guess about 3 months ago, I really didn't know anything about you, so I just decided to Google you. And I came across a very interesting article, and I'd like to get your opinion of what actually happened. But I read that you were arrested while racing across the country in basically a cannonball run style race.
That's pretty much exactly what happened.
So where did the race start?
In New York.
In New York. And where was the finish?
In Los Angeles.
Wow. So did you finish the race?
Yes.
Nice. Well, so tell me about where did you get arrested?
In Childress, Texas.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. I've been to Childress, Texas, and it does not surprise me at all. That's where you got arrested.
I didn't even know police could do this. They pulled over. So it was a race across the United States based on the original Cannonball Run.
Okay.
They split it into several days. So the race itself took 5 days instead of just a straight, 36-hour drive. And you had certain places to stop. And so you would get up in the morning, all the cars would line up. They would tell you where to meet midday. At midday, they would give you a clue of where to meet at the end of the day. Then there was a party at night, and you had to go to the party to find out what time to line up.
Wow.
The next day. So it was an endurance test as much as it was a driving test. And there were definitely a lot of people being pulled over. We had branding all over our cars and numbers, so no question that
What
we
you
were
were
up to
doing.
something.
Right.
And when we got to Childress, they started pulling over groups of people, and I didn't know they could do this. Like, they pulled me over and said, wait here, and then they proceeded to pull over like 2 or 3 other drivers, and then they took us all to the police station together.
I've actually been pulled over like that, so
I didn't know that was a thing, but I guess, what are you going to fight with them? But I got very lucky. It was a Sunday, and I thought for sure I was going to be stuck there till Monday. But the police officer called the Justice of the Peace, who very kindly came in on a Sunday.
Wow.
And before I fully was booked, he started talking to, I was with my dad, who was also driving, and he started talking to us about ranching. And next thing I knew, Dad and the Justice of the Peace were talking about cattle prices and all sorts of things, and he just let me go.
Wow.
So I don't actually have a record.
Wow. No record at all?
Nope.
I don't even know if Dan can say that.
Well, nope. Oh, this is a story one of these days. So Dan's in the studio, and eventually I'm going to have to get that story out of him.
I know that I can't say that either. So anyway, we'll move on from that. But so did you win?
Well, yes and no. So I do have a gumball trophy. I'm very competitive, and I wanted one and the trophies are bronzes of Burt Reynolds, and I wanted a trophy.
Oh,
And
awesome.
I knew that I was probably not going to, I knew some of the cars that were in the race, and I thought, we're not going to win. I'm not going to win the fastest car. And it's pretty tough to be the first across the finish line. But one of the prizes was Best Dressed, and I was like, this I can win.
Nice.
So I do have a trophy. I did win Best Dressed.
Everybody wants to know, too, what car did you drive?
We were driving a Mercedes AMG, and I can't even remember. People always ask me this, and I'm embarrassed to say I don't even remember what model. It was not a car it was a car of ours at the time, but it wasn't a car that we picked out or anything. We ended up, a friend had ordered a very fast Mercedes for his wife who didn't want it, and so we ended up buying that car off him, raced it, and then sold it. So
Oh, wow.
I have such a little history with it, I actually don't remember specifically what it was.
Now, why did you go with because I'm sure there was like Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Porsche. Why would you go with the Mercedes over a normal sports car?
We had a theory that it would hold up to 3,000 miles very well compared to some of the more finicky sports cars.
Okay.
And it had a very fast engine. And it proved itself out. I mean, at some point, you're still racing, or not officially racing. You're on a road rally with other people. So it's not that often that you really get into top speed. So we didn't need that extra speed that we would have gotten, those extra 30 or 40 miles per hour with a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. And the thing we didn't count on that made a huge difference was the size of the gas tank. We filled up about half as often as those other cars, which made a massive difference in the long run.
Yeah, because you're saving at least 10 minutes.
Yeah, we were always running right up there with the fastest cars because even if they pulled ahead of us for a minute, we would catch right up as soon as they had to get gas.
Very nice. Very nice. So let me ask you this. You and your dad are racing across the country. This is basically Cannonball Run. I'm assuming that if you had to take on the roles, you're Burt Reynolds. Does that make your dad Dom DeLuise?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, great. Is there anything else you want to cover before we go?
I think that's about it. I mean, the big thing that I would love to hit is just I have been incredibly impressed with our ambassador program and how engaged our community is. And so if you're an ambassador and listening, thank you. And anybody who's not, you should really check it out. It's a really special place of supportive people. I mean, we've had people fly into different cities and get flat tires, and another ambassador came and picked them up. And we often have them take people to their favorite cigar lounge and things like that. It's not just a online community. It actually has taken an in-person experience as well. And I've been very, very impressed and excited to be a part of that.
Well, I do know that I've made a lot of really good friends through the ambassador program and the Facebook page. I mean, I have guys that I talk to outside the group on a regular basis.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. There's some really good guys. And I'll go ahead and give a shout out to Mike and Mike up north. So both of you guys, we always talk a lot and make good jokes. And one of them's always talking about hunting and fishing and gutting and meat and all that. And then the other one's always talking about Seattle. And so I'm not a Seattle fan. So he gets to, give me hell that the Cowboys suck. Anyway, well, hey, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And I guess we'll get back with Dan and see what else. Maybe we'll dig in to see what his record has to say about his early childhood or young youth. But thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon, Amanda.
Thanks, Rob.
Hey, guys, before we jump back in with Dan, their marketing specialist Sam was walking by, and I grabbed him and forced him to get in the chair. I wanted you guys to have the opportunity to get to know him. He runs the ambassador program. He does all the social media for Micallef. So if you're interacting on all the platforms, chances are you're talking to Sam. So Sam, thank you so much for taking the time and sitting with us. And let's just get started and find out a little bit about you. Where are you originally from? When did you start smoking cigars? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on and grabbing me from the hallway. I am originally from Hobbs, New Mexico, a little town in the southeast corner, pretty close to where you're from, Rob, in Lubbock. But my first cigar was right out of high school. Can't tell my mom this. Hopefully she's not listening. I was 17 at the time.
Wow.
We graduated high school. We were on our senior trip. We're sitting on a beach in Hawaii, and we bought some cheap little Hawaiian cigars. I have no idea where the tobacco was from. It's like flavored with vanilla. And I was like, man, this isn't bad.
And what a great place to smoke your first cigar.
Absolutely. It was late at night. We were sitting on the beach watching the waves come in, having a cigar. It was amazing.
Man, that sounds like something I want to do now. And I love going to lounges and smoking with friends and getting to know people. But at the same time, man, I love going either to the beach or the mountains and just having that solitude to enjoy a smoke. And just thinking about laying on the beach in Hawaii smoking a cigar sounds pretty damn good.
Oh, it was amazing. And I think the first premium cigar I had, the one that really blew me away, was the My Father Flor de las Antillas.
Oh, great stick. Great stick. In fact, I was at a lounge yesterday or a couple of days ago playing some poker with some friends, and a good friend of ours, Jody, was smoking one of those. And I was like, man, that's a great stick. I haven't smoked it in a while, but that is a great stick.
Absolutely. I love that.
So tell us about how you got into Texas. I mean, you're from Hobbs, and although I almost consider Hobbs Texas because it's basically right on the state line and there's nothing else close to Hobbs, how'd you get over to Texas?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people in Hobbs would consider Hobbs part of Texas.
Right?
It's kind of the oil country. It's very much that Texas culture. It's not really the culture of Albuquerque and Santa Fe.
Right. I mean, you're part of the Permian Basin.
Absolutely. We're drilling for oil just like everyone in Midland and Lubbock. But when I was in high school, I visited TCU.
Okay.
With one of my friend's dads who went there, and it just absolutely blew me away. I thought, wow, this is where I want to go to school. I'm going to apply early. If I get in, I'm going.
Nice.
And then the backup plan was Texas Tech. Because I've been to Tech games growing up, loved the football team.
So the fact that you chose TCU over the Red Raiders kind of makes me hesitant on you, but I'm going to give you a pass just because Dan gave me a thumbs up on you.
I'm glad to hear that.
So what did you go to school for at TCU?
Well, nowadays I'm a marketing specialist, but my degree is actually in economics.
Oh, okay. Well, that kind of fits together.
Mm-hmm. I actually started out the first semester as pre-med.
Oh, wow.
I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to go into surgery and be a surgeon. Then after one semester of biology and chemistry, I was like, nope,
yeah,
I'm out. I'm doing something more interesting, more fun.
Yeah, I couldn't do the whole medical thing. That's the way down. But I do have a brother who's a doctor, and so that was for him. In fact, he is my doctor, and so I'm glad it worked out for him. It benefits me.
Absolutely.
But anyway, so you went to TCU. How did you get involved with Micallef?
So in college, I'd started smoking cigars more and more. We had a few friends. We'd go sit out by the fire or sit on campus and light up some cigars, which is not common at TCU, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
But I read about Micallef Cigars. About when I started at TCU, I was like, hey, there's a premium cigar company right here in Fort Worth.
Right.
I'm going to check this out. So I smoked a couple of cigars. I was like, wow, these are really good. And then when I graduated, I was on my job search. I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I graduated, really had no idea. Wanted to do something interesting. So I browsed the Micallef website. There was a little email icon. And I thought, what the heck? The worst thing that happens is they don't respond.
Right.
So I clicked on it, and it said Steve at Micallef Cigars. It wasn't customer service. I was like, oh, here's some hope. This is going to an actual person. So I wrote this really nice email talking about I was passionate for cigars. I was looking to start my career. And a day later, I got an email back. And I had a great phone call with Steve, and then I met Al and Steve down at Silverleaf.
Very nice.
Had a cigar in the job interview. Definitely my favorite job interview.
Oh, yeah. Come on. I mean, where else could you go to a job interview and enjoy a cigar?
Absolutely. And they hired me that day.
Wow.
And I've been here since April 1st.
That's awesome, man. Well, congratulations. And you are the marketing specialist here at Micallef. You do all the Instagram. I talk to you a lot on Instagram just because that's where I am most of the time in social media. But you also run the ambassador program, so you're on Facebook as well. And is there any other social media that you guys are currently involved in?
Twitter as well.
Oh, okay.
But the really big ones are Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have a Twitter account. I don't really use it that much. I actually, in fact, a lot of probably people unfollowed me on Twitter because I had this little side program that would automatically post things for me. And somehow, I don't know how it happened, but it started posting just this word that's not even a word. It was like SMIFTAY, and it would post that like 3 times a day, and I couldn't figure out how to get it stopped. And so I'm sure I lost a lot of followers. Anyway, short story, I actually got it fixed now, so I'm not just sending out a bunch of BS. But so you've been at Micallef now for how long?
What would it be, like 8 months now?
Oh,
Maybe about
okay.
8 months. I'm really enjoying it.
That's awesome. My first experience meeting you in person was at the Cigar and Spirits Festival.
Absolutely.
Which was very successful. And I mean, that was actually our first event to do a show from. And you guys did a great job putting on a great festival.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate that.
So tell me this. You've been here for 8 months. What's your go-to cigar here at Micallef?
Well, I'll tell you, my first meeting in here was when we were really bringing in the Migdalia 646.
Oh.
It wasn't available to the public yet, and our director of the factory, Alan, handed me one and wanted to see what I thought, and I smoked it, and it just blew me away.
And that's what you're smoking right now, by the way.
That is what I'm smoking right now, and I've continued to smoke it for the last 8 months.
I'm telling you, that's how I am. There's a lot of cigars that I smoke here and there, but the Migdalia, I never get tired of it. And I can't say that about very many cigars. That cigar speaks to me every time I light it up.
Absolutely. I absolutely love it. Before we started selling it, I bought a box and smoked a whole box.
Nice. Well, see, I liked you before, but now I have like a huge amount of respect because not only do you smoke my favorite cigar, you smoke it in my favorite size.
Absolutely.
I
Dan
can't
will tell
say
you
that-
otherwise.
I can't say that for everyone, but you get it.
Absolutely. This is absolutely the best size of the Migdalia.
Oh,
Don't let Dan convince you it's the Toro. It is the
It's not the
646.
Toro. It's not the Toro. So what do you see going forward as far as what you're doing here at Micallef? I mean, what do you have on the horizon as far as what you're doing?
Mm-hmm. So our ambassador program is just growing like crazy. We love our ambassadors and we love interacting with them. I'm doing a lot of stuff in our Facebook group. Actually, this Friday, I'm going live in our Facebook group with 2 ambassadors.
Oh, nice. Do I know the ambassadors or is that a secret?
It's a secret. You'll get to hear it live on Friday.
All right. I think I know who one of them is, but I'm not going to say.
I think you might be surprised.
I could be surprised. That's true. That's true. I get surprised pretty regular. So anyway, man, we just want to say thank you for coming on the show and letting people get to know you. I look forward to talking to you on Instagram all the time, and I think you're doing a great job. And you're always posting great stuff, and you're always liking my content. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Well, take care of yourself. If you need anything from us, just let us know.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Thanks, Sam. Hey, man, we're back after the break. We want to say thank you to Sam for swinging by and just giving an introduction so you guys can get to know him a little bit. And anyway, we got Dan back with us, and lo and behold, he's brought in some fantastic rum to close out the show. So I just want to say thank you for bringing in some really nice rum.
Well, we're just happy to have you here, Rob. It's not every day we get to bring out the 25-year-old rum.
Wow. I didn't realize it was 25-year-old rum, but I will say it's the best rum I've ever had.
I'm going to take that as a compliment.
Yes. You know, I've drank in my younger days the old crap rum that's spicy. And I mean, you know, everybody has a different palate. So some people like that. But for me, I'm more of a purist. You can tell by the cigars I smoke. You can tell by the coffee I drink. You can tell by the tea that I drink. And wow, did I just make myself sound pretentious?
You're something special.
You know, the people that know me know I'm not pretentious at all. I just like quality items.
Yeah, absolutely. We work hard for a living. We want to have some nice things.
It's like Eddie from Christmas Vacation said, I just want something really.
Well, today you're drinking Florida Cana 25-year-old slow-aged rum.
Wow.
And I got to say that it was a gift from Al coming back from Thanksgiving. He knows that I'm a Zacapa man like Charlie Serrano, and both of us like Zacapa, but I've got to say this kind of elevated us to a new place.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've never had rum that good, and I've had some good rum. You said it's from the Dominican?
No, I looked it up. It's from Nicaragua.
Oh.
And what I would suggest is that you try Zacapa. It's a little easier on the billfold, but for a celebration rum to go with the celebration cigar, like the Reserva, this is the one.
Well, and I'll also let the listeners in on a little secret here. I'm actually smoking a pre-release Micallef cigar that so far, man, this thing is nice. And I'll tell you what I really love is it's a box press, really dark wrapper. I don't know anything about it, but it is super smooth. And the burn on it, I mean, it is burnt for a box press. I'm shocked because most box press don't smoke that pure. And this one, I mean, it looks like someone just took a line and drew all the way around it, and it's perfectly burning. That's very unusual for a box press.
Well, I think Amanda, when you talked to her, she had it right. She talked about us continuing to focus on our Cuban heritage flavors. And when we're thinking about products for next year, you're smoking something today that'll be available, and it really falls in that line of what we do great and what we want to continue doing.
Well, and I'll tell you what, we talked about this a few months ago when we were just hanging out at the Silver Leaf, and you told me that you guys really wanted to concentrate more on the heritage of cigars when you bring cigars to market. And I love that because I think that a lot of cigar smokers got lost in the new innovation, or it wasn't what I would consider innovation, but it was a lot of new products that came to market that were just what I consider to be pepper bomb. You know what I mean? Just full in your face, boom. And people really got excited about that because it was something new. And now you guys are reeling it back to the heritage, which is quality. And that's what I'm loving about your line.
Well, we appreciate that. You know, like any business, we sat down and looked and said, what do we want to be when we grow up? We had this incredible startup, but now it's time for us to really focus on what can people count on? And our idea was, let's get back in that time machine. Let's go build these traditional Cuban cigars following their fermenting, their rolling, their processing. But we're going to take advantage of all the incredible tobaccos available to us to produce some extraordinary sticks.
Well, I mean, you have the team in place, too, all the way down to the factory. You have the expert growers. You have the expert blenders. You just have a whole complete team building what I think a lot of Cuban cigars wish they could do.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, so many families had to leave Cuba, and they started great companies in Dominican and in Nicaragua and other countries. And they're building incredible product. We've just decided that it's important to us to make sure that this craft of rolling cigars in a traditional way, the heritage that's always been there, we want to make sure it's preserved. And we believe that if we do it in an excellent way, that customers will fall in love with those flavors all over again.
Well, I agree 100%. I know I'm in love with them. So I want to ask you something non-Micallef related. Earlier, we were talking about Amanda being arrested, and it came out that you had been arrested.
That is affirmative.
So tell us about, I mean, I'm guessing right now that you were probably like robbing a bank.
I was not robbing a bank. But I have to admit, right off the top, I was a grown man when it happened.
Wow.
Because it's easy to wash away things when I was in college one day.
Right.
That is not the case. I gave a talk to a group at the Boys and Girls Club, and I remember standing up telling the story I'm about to say, and they were looking at me, and I had no street credibility. I said, well, I'm an executive. I've been at Microsoft for 15 years, and I could tell that it was just completely outside their reach of the universe. I said, but let me tell you something. All of us make mistakes, and it's how you handle yourself. In my case, I accidentally carried a firearm into the airport.
Oh, so you pulled a Barry Switzer.
Barry didn't have as good a PR team as I had, because you do not want to make the front cover. And what was embarrassing, I flew through that same line twice a week. I would go through it. So I'd bring those guys coffee. I knew them on a first-name basis. And one of them looked up and said, Mr. Thompson, do you have a firearm in your bag? And you do not want to hear those words.
Yeah.
And my response was, if there's a firearm in my bag and you're asking the question, you need to be very careful because it's loaded and it's chambered. Be very careful as you unpack my bag.
Wow. So I got to ask you this. What were you carrying?
I was carrying a gun that I no longer carry.
Okay.
It was a .380. If you're going to have a concealed carry, it's too light in your bag to know that it's in there. But the amazing thing is there was a lot of family stress. My wife was having a health issue. I had a lot of things on my mind. And when I went through, the security team and the arresting officer, they were super kind. They allowed me to call a friend. You make that lifeline call. Have you made that lifeline call before, Rob?
Actually, I didn't need to. Whenever I was arrested back in my youth, the cop was so cool that he told my buddy that I was with that before we would go to the station, we would drive around for like 30 minutes so my buddy could go get the money to get me out.
It doesn't quite work that way when you go into an airport with a firearm.
No.
So I called a good friend, and I said, I need to be out of here in 4 hours.
Wow.
And he reached out to a defense attorney. I didn't think ever in my life would I need a defense attorney. And about 3.5 hours later, I was sitting locked up in the jail at DFW Airport. By the way, they were great hosts. They allowed me to get my own juice out of the refrigerator. They said I was polite. They brought me a cell phone so I could really contemplate what I'd done. And I developed a game plan right then. I thought, if I get convicted, that could be at the end of my career at Microsoft because I might lose my passport. What would my game plan be? And I'd already mapped out that there was a 7-Eleven for sale and a liquor store and a dry cleaners. So I built a little plan B plan while I was sitting in jail. The attorney picked me up. On the way home, I told the attorney, I said, I've got a lot of things on my mind. I've got to make sure that my wife is healthy. I've got to make sure that I maintain my job. This is up to you. And he said, you're going to have to prepay this.
That was the consequence.
So, yeah, that was the first consequence. So just to kind of get to the net of the story, I compiled a binder that was basically my life history, starting off with being an Eagle Scout and the work that I'd done and the charitable organizations.
Whoa. Wait a minute. You're an Eagle Scout?
I'm an Eagle Scout. And I'm not going to say this is the best practice to pull your Eagle Scout card out.
Sure.
But when you're in front of a judge, you want to set a precedence that your entire life you've tried to do the right things.
Right.
You may have made mistakes, but let's at least set the precedence that you're trying to do the right thing.
Well, my best friend is an Eagle Scout, and I know what it takes to be an Eagle Scout, so I got to say I'm impressed. I would have never seen that coming from a mile away.
My father had a simple system. You get an Eagle Scout, you can get a driver's license.
Wow.
And I wanted to drive.
That's cool.
So the judge and the district attorney looked at the situation, and I'm thankful to say that the entire incident is expunged, and it did not go to the grand jury or to a court date. And I am grateful that the good people in Tarrant County were able to assess it and provide me a little relief for me and my family.
Sounds like you were showed some grace.
It was tremendous grace. And, the best part is it did allow me to focus on my job, focus on my wife, who I love. I call her Birdie. She was having a little medical problem. We were able to get that fixed. It was a complicated journey, but life is fantastic for us now.
That's great, man. Well, I'll tell you what, I was up in Kansas City earlier this year flying back to Texas, and I don't fly a lot, and so I'm not down with the routine like I probably should be, but I just show up and walk through, and whatever happens, happens. And so I forget to put my wallet in the tray. I forget to put my keys in the tray. I forget to take my belt off. So within like 3 minutes, I'm like getting a proctologist exam in this little room. And so they said, okay, you're good now. And I was like, well, I haven't been touched like that in years. But anyway, whenever I got down to the end of the line, the guy that was next to me, they called him back, and he had 2 9mm clips loaded in his bag. And he just completely forgot about it. But the cool thing is they just confiscated the clips. They didn't arrest him.
Yeah, the law's actually been changed to where they can do that now, and the airport can make a determination as to what's the right way to handle it. The time I was there, unfortunately, is an automatic arrest.
I got you. Cool.
But hey, Rob, I will tell you one thing. This is a tip for anybody who carries ever. If you will put a little baggage clip or a red tag on the outside of bags where you've got a gun, that way you're process driven and hey, that bag has a gun in it, and I'm going into the airport, and it reminds you to do it. And that's been how I prevented that in the future.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I am fully supportive of concealed carry, public carry, and so you want to avoid the pitfalls of going to jail because you made a boneheaded mistake.
Yeah, it was absolutely boneheaded, and it was very expensive.
Oh.
Because our good friends in the federal government decided after it was expunged to issue a penalty of $10,000.
Wow, are you
and
serious?
There was no recourse because I thought the judge found that it never happened. Why should I pay the 10G? Nope, the federal government informed me that I was paying 10 grand.
Wow, that's a penalty. So, hey, man, well, before we go, I wanted to ask you, how has it been since you became the president?
Leading any organization makes you lonely and sleepless. You worry about all the details. There's too many things in the day to get done. So you're just having to think, and you're always asking your colleagues and customers, am I prioritizing things correctly? And I'm just fortunate to be surrounded by a team that when I make a mistake and forget to get to something, that they jump in and do it. But that frees me to think about what can our business strategy be? The predicate exchange, PredX, is a function of something that we'd been working on for a while. We brought it out. We think it's a really positive step for the industry as it matures. And that's not the only thing we have in the pipeline. You can count on Micallef Cigars to have additional innovations, and we'll announce them at the right time.
I had to take a small break there because I was finishing off that excellent rum. Thank you so much for that.
I can't believe you just licked the inside of the glass.
Hey, you'd be real surprised on things I do if you hung out with me more. Hey, man, thanks for letting me come into the headquarters and do the show here. This is going to be a special release that we're going to be doing probably Wednesday night, at the latest Thursday night. It's been the holiday season, so we've been releasing 2 episodes a week. And so don't get used to that, guys, because come January, we're going back to 1 a week. I can't continue to work at this pace. But I'm enjoying it. I'm having a lot of fun, and I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. Tune in next Monday, and we are going to have Liana Arturo Fuente on the... Let me say that again. Tune in next Monday on December 16th. That's our 1-year anniversary. We're going to have Liana Fuente on the show for our anniversary show. And we're also giving away, we're going to make the announcement on that new Air humidor that's 250 count. It has an electronic control that controls your temperature. So you set the temperature, then all you have to do is do the humidity on it. Man, it is a fantastic prize. So make sure you go by our Instagram page and see how to sign up for that contest. Anyway, Dan, I appreciate you taking the time to be on the show, and we look forward to seeing what you guys do next.
Hey, Rob, thank you so much. And to the ambassadors, Micallef ambassadors out there, thank you. Our retail partners. And Rob, we just want to congratulate you in advance on 1 year. You've been a dream to work with in terms of partnership. We love the other guests that you've had from all over the cigar industry. It's informative to us, and we're just proud of the work that you and Brian are doing together.
Hey, well, I appreciate it. And I tell you what, I couldn't do it alone, and Brian is just a big piece of the pie, and he also loves big pieces of pie.
Thank you, Rob.
All right, man. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.